Karl Konrad and welcome to Australian Immigration News, brought to you by Australian Immigration Law Services in Sydney. During a press conference yesterday, the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the Treasurer Jim Chalmers announced a new Jobs and Skills Summit to be held in September. The PM outlined the issues of the visa processing backlog.
Well, the government has inherited, along its list of problems we've inherited, a massive backlog in visas. It's quite absurd that at a time when we have such skills shortages, there are people who've been waiting for such a long period of time. So that's one issue that the government is just dealing with. We don't need a summit to tell us that that's the case. But we'll also look at areas like the mix. We do have some short-term skills shortages that will always need to be filled by temporary migration. That will continue to play a role.
Encouraging words that action is happening as we speak to fix the problems at hand. He then went on to outline the importance of making Australia competitive in the global market of skills shortages.
We have a global labour market. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to make sure that we have better pathways as well to a permanent presence in Australia for people who can give us the skills that we need.
Again, this is all promising news that then action is on the way to fix the backlog of visa processing. The Prime Minister last week held a press conference with the New Zealand Prime Minister where he confirmed some of the positive action on Labor Party's policy of moving away from people living on long-term temporary residency visas, such as New Zealanders who have done so since 2001.
We worked together on ways in which we have a seamless transition. We don't want people to be temporary residents forever, and what we'll do is we'll work on ways of a pathway to citizenship with a timeline of Anzac Day 2023. One of the issues that we'll look at as well unilaterally in Australia is in New Zealand, if you're an Australian who's been resident for a year, you have voting rights. In New Zealand, you're able to participate fully in those processes. So as part of the normal review process that occurs after a federal election in Australia, we'll be asking the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters to consider whether there's a way to return to systems that have existed in the past of giving New Zealand people who are here in Australia, contributing to society, paying taxes, working, voting rights here in Australia as well. We won't preempt those processes, but it is, I think, a really common sense position to at least examine.
Also, the issue of using Section 501 of the Migration Act to deport New Zealanders from Australia is to be examined with a softer approach than used under the previous Liberal government. Of course, the recent good news to report that most of you are probably aware of by now is the abolishment of the requirement to declare your vaccination status when you arrive in Australia, and from Wednesday the 5th of July, all overseas visitors were able to enter Australia without being vaccinated. However, be warned, check with the airline you are travelling with whether they require evidence of vaccination or a recent COVID test before you board their plane. Usually, issues facing visa applicants rarely reach the broader public awareness in Australia, but these days all the commercial TV stations are covering the news.
But there's another backlog the Albanese government is also going to need to deal with. That's visas, and it could not be happening at a worse time with the nation facing a skills crisis as businesses cry out for more workers.
It seems that even our government ministers travelling overseas are not escaping the complaints about Australian visa processing. The Foreign Minister Penny Wong copped an earful of displeasure as she toured Malaysia recently.
Australia is making attempts to remedy the delay issues plaguing visa approval for Malaysians wanting to travel to their country. Its Foreign Minister Penny Wong said she had visited the Australian High Commission in Kuala Lumpur during this trip, and they admitted that there has been a backlog to settle.
The various states and territories are eagerly awaiting the news of the numbers each region will be allocated for this financial year. Many states are holding off on releasing their sponsorship requirements until they know roughly how many people they can support for their state or territory sponsored 491 and 190 visas. New South Wales and South Australia have both withdrawn their list of occupations to sponsor, but no doubt the new lists will be released as soon as possible, so stay tuned. In other news, it was revealed in the Financial Review too that the Australian government had wasted nearly $100 million of taxpayers' money to unsuccessfully revamp Australia's ageing visa infrastructure system. It includes the so-called permissions capability platform to have a digital passenger declaration system. The Labor government is now considering keeping the old paper-based declaration forms once again. It's hard to believe that such a huge amount of money could be wasted during the pandemic period when nurses were crying out that they could not get enough personal protection gear to look after our citizens. We are eagerly looking forward to releasing the news regarding the state sponsorships opening their doors once again. As always, take care out there and I'll see you next time, so bye for now.